Step into the spotlight.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to hold back the tears. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not crying. It's just really dusty. Gosh, maybe you should dust around here. So, I just read Batman the Annual #2. And I don't know, it's one of those books that just kind of hits you from the side. It's like when they're talking about those Jurassic Park movies where the Velociraptor doesn't attack you from the front, it attacks you from the side. And it just hit me right in the feels. It was an instant KO. It was an RKO. This book, I don't know. I was not a fan of the Bat-Cat relationship when it first started, mainly because they kept doing the 3D modeling art, and the story was kind of boring to me. I was like, I don't really care about this, but it was written so well that I just got to like it more and more. And then when they got that, what's her name? Gosh, the new artist that I thought was a guy that somebody said, that's a girl, but she does a really good job drawing Batman and Catwoman, and then they also Tom King's done a really good job writing the relationship. It feels like a real relationship. This is what happens when you have people that write relationships that have actually been in relationships. Cough, cough, Marvel, cough, cough. These are actually how people interact, and how something might happen if Batman was a real person. So I've heard some negative stuff about this annual, that it's boring, blah, blah, blah. My thing is, have you guys, I mean, I know that you're entitled to your own opinion, that's the thing, but I just want to put this out here. Have you guys not read the last 5 or 6 issues of Batman? Because that's all it's been, is him and Catwoman for the last arc. I mean, it's kind of like the thing that's going on in The Flash right now. Him and Iris are getting married. That's the dynamic right now. He's trying to marry Catwoman, and it's got all this baggage between them that they're trying to get settled. All that's happening. That's the premise of the story. So I don't really understand why you're having issues with it. But I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinions. So first off, I don't like this cover because it's kind of boring, one tone, and it almost looks like 3D modeling, and I hate 3D modeling. Draw it. Just draw it, okay? But so we start out here, and it says near the beginning. And that's pretty much all they say for a little while. And I was kind of like, what? Catwoman has broken into the Batcave. Now, this is early Batman, very early Batman. So he's still got some things that he needs to iron out. It's a very cool shot of her letting herself down in the Batcave. The bats are flying around. She drops right into the Batmobile, and she's off. Meow. And it almost felt like the old Batman, like the Alan West Batman, you know, with that Catwoman. That's kind of the way it felt like at the beginning. Plus the way they draw the Batmobile. So Batman is interrogating the guy. He's got him hung upside down in very Batman style. And then he gets a call from Alfred saying, Bruce, we've got a problem here. Catwoman has stole the car. And so then he sees the car like crashed into a bar. And somebody says, the Batmobile, the Bat car? And Alfred says, well, how does it look, sir? Is it bad? And he says, oh, the Batmobile will be fine. And he says, the Batmobile, sir? Is that what we're calling it? So, you know, it's very early on. He says, there's a mouse. She left a mouse in the car. And so then we see the mouse in his little wheel. He's got him a cage now. And he says, this is later on, he says, sir, I thought we had an agreement here. You're supposed to be resting. You have this long laundry list of problems wrong with you. He's always got something hurting on him, and he's not taking a break. And so he puts his pad down now and puts his pen down. Okay, pay attention to that. I missed it at first. And so then he takes a drink from Alfred, goes back to get his pen, and he's talking about the Riddler. He's trying to figure out a riddle that the Riddler gave him. And he looks at his pen and paper, and his pen's gone. And he says, the pen is gone, sir, or Alfred. And he said, shall I alert the Superman? Or perhaps we might go look under the sofa. And he said, she's here. Sir? And then he hears meow. And he takes off running. He dives. I mean, he's running in his pajamas and his slippers, diving over stuff. And he says, I'm going to catch you. And she says, no, you're not. And he says, this is ridiculous. She says, that you think you can catch me? I agree. And he says, I'm going to catch you. She goes, well, I meant to tell you I wanted to be nice, about what happened with your car. So I called the cops on myself before I broke in, which I think is very generous. And she says, won't they be excited to see me go right out the front window? And won't they be surprised to see you, Bruce Wayne, fall right behind me? And he's like, oh, crap. So he has to stop himself. She gets away. The cops are after her. He can't take off running after her because, of course, he's just a millionaire Batman or millionaire Bruce Wayne. So she has covered her escape. And there's another freaking mouse she's left. So at this point, he's talking about his alarm systems. He set up five of them, four of them. She got past, but the last one, tripped it. And so he knows where she's at. She's in the bedroom. And she's going through one of his personal safes, and she breaks into it right as he gets there. And she says, this one, for some reason, only had a pearl, a single scratched pearl. What's up with this? And Batman, you can kind of see the distress on his face, even though he's very solemn. It's very important to him. And he said, it was my mother's. And of course, that was the pearl necklace that she had whenever she died. The classic scene where the pearl necklace broke and the pearls went everywhere. And he says, she died. And he said, everyone knows. She goes, yes, everyone knows, but I know. She's trying to tell him that she feels differently because she was in a similar situation growing up the way that he did. So she really knows, whereas other people just know of it. And she said, did you ever have that moment where you don't know anything else? Like you almost like this life. Like you like being by yourself and you think maybe it's better, maybe it's okay. And then you hate yourself. You hate everything because it is okay. And she says, why do you dress up like a bat? And she says, why do you dress up like a cat? And she says, everybody likes cats. And he says, no one likes bats. And that's the whole reason, she wants people to like her, and he doesn't want anybody to like him. And that's where they kind of have this moment. Of course, she tricks him, sets off one of his grenades, runs away. And then at that point leaves another mouse holding his mom's pearl. So she didn't steal the pearl. That's very important to know. So at this point, he's got 3 freaking rats in a cage. Alfred's taking care of them. They're like pets. And then she's breaking in again. And he says, again? She says, again and again. And then he's on a rooftop. We get this awesome scene here. And he says, why? And she says, you should really appreciate all this. You ever tried palming a live mouse? They're very squirmy. And he says, why? Tell me. And she says, isn't it obvious? Because you're weak. You need to be better. I have to make you better. I have to teach you where you are weak or you're going to die. And so she's basically been doing this to try to help him this whole time. She says, you've done all this. You've learned all this martial arts. You have all this technology. But you're still just a rich kid with a lot of pain. And you don't understand how to be strong. So she dives off, runs away. He runs after her. And she says, he says, well, why do you care if I live or die? She says, don't you care if I live or die? And he says, it's different. We're different. And that's kind of important. You can tell right there that he already cares about her. And she says, no, Bat, that's just it. That's all of it under there. We're just the same. So then we get another cool shot here where he's standing there and the cat has just disappeared. And I like the part here with his bat wing, the way it curls, his bat cape. It's a really awesome shot there. And so then he's calling for her, and then he hears a squeak, squeak again, and there's a mouse on his shoulder. So at this point, there's 4 mice. And so she sneaks into her apartment, she thinks she's good. And then there's Batman in the doorway saying, squeak. And she said, how? How did you know? And he said, the rat's droppings had lead in it that I traced back to the paint in this apartment. And she says, mouse poo? And he says, yes, mouse poo. And she said, you knew all along, didn't you? You didn't need 4 mice. You knew after the first one. And he says, because, she says, why did you let this go on? He says, because sometimes I like being alone, and then I hate everything because I like it. You saw me, I see you. And that's the very thing right there. You know, he understands what she's saying. And she says, we're like 2 lost orphans who see the weak in one another. And now you want to what? Help me? And he says, no, I don't want to help you. And then they have a moment there. And then they swap hellos. And you can tell that they've known each other for a while. And they've been dating for a while. This has been a whole thing. They like to play with each other. And they've actually been dating for a long time now. And then later we cut to much later, and they're actually married and been together for a long time. Both of them are old. They're an old couple. I like the cane with Bruce Wayne because it brings back memories of Batman Beyond. And they're at the doctor's office, and there's actually some bad news. And at first I was confused. I thought it was Catwoman that was sick because they're talking about the how they met, and they keep arguing about how they met, you know. And then Catwoman, Selena just stops and starts crying, and Bruce goes over there and comforts her, and she's like, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. So then they start walking off again, and I took it as her being sick and upset, but actually she was upset about him. And so then she's talking to Batwoman, which actually turns out to be Bruce Wayne's daughter. And I'm not... it's Helena, which is the Huntress, but now she's Batwoman. You know, she's changed over. She still has the costume that's sort of like the Huntress, but she's actually Batwoman, and she's took over. And she flies off after they have a little bit of discussion, talking about how she asked Zatanna to help, but Zatanna is Zatara's dad. That's a whole different joke that has to do with a video in the past, but she flies off, and Selena's just there on her own, and she goes, you know, later that night, they're sitting there talking, they have a moment, and then Bruce Wayne is singing that song that Alfred was singing earlier, and he's trying to work out, he's trying to get strong again, and he starts coughing, and I was like, oh, that was the signal. He started coughing, and I was like, he's the one that's sick. And he says, what, are you here to help me? And she goes, no, I'm not here to help you. And then they trade that moment again like they did earlier. They keep swapping these moments back and forth. And you really understand that they know each other. So then you get a moment there where Bruce Wayne's laying there and Catwoman's sitting there, and there's a whole family. And it looks like, I'm thinking that's Nightwing and Barbara that's there together. And then I think that's Jason Todd and Batwing. And that may be Damien over there on the side. That looks like maybe Spoiler and a couple other people. And it looks like the Robin from the girl in the front looks like the Robin from The Dark Knight Returns. So that was kind of cool. But she says, good night, Bat, I love you. And, you know, that was the end. He died. So it was very sad. And then there's the Batmobile. She jumps in the Batmobile like before. And so she's talking. And, you know, it talks about the part before where she jumps in the car and says meow and takes off. But then she hears a meow this time. And she looks, and there's this tiny little black kitten sitting there with a note on her. And it says, and where did you come from? And the note says, I love you too, cat, from the first kiss to the last. And then she's just petting the kitty. The little cat's meowing. And that's the end. And, I mean, it's a very, very good book, guys. I mean, this is one of those books that's just it kind of surprised me because they didn't really talk about it that much. But, I mean, it kind of blows all these other books out of the water right now. But like I said before, it's one of those situations where you can tell that Tom King has actually had relationships. I mean, he could write a book, or he could write a movie about Batman right now, and it would be very, very good. You know, that's the whole thing that he's trying to tell in the storyline right now. And it's funny because most people, when they do annuals, the annuals are like completely different than the story. You know, they might have a little to do with the story, and then they'll go off on this, whole tangent and have multiple different stories. But this annual was very good because it wasn't exactly like the arc that's happening right now, but it was enough like it to where it got you invested into this actual book. And of course, my LCS didn't order one, and then I couldn't order it online because it was actually sold out at Midtown like 3 or 4 days before it came out. I was very surprised. I was like, oh, it's an annual. What? Who buys that many annuals? I mean, annuals were typically just there to make money, and I don't know. It's just this was a really good book, and like I said, he knows what to write. I mean, several times making this video, I had to actually just stop because you're just feeling so emotional from a freaking comic book. People say, well, they're just comic books. Have them read this book right here, and if they don't feel some kind of emotion, then you just need to stop talking to that person because you don't need that kind of negativity in your life. I mean, this book right here just embodies Batman because it talks about Batman when he was younger, when he first met Cat, and then it talks about him later on. He's Batman. He's there for justice, but at the same time, in the back of his mind, he wants happiness. She has opened him back up to the idea of happiness. And he's helped her because he's seen that he showed her that someone can actually care about her. She wants acceptance. That's why she's the Catwoman. She steals, but she wants attention at the same time. So, I mean, this was a very good book. The artwork is good. Now, when it dips to when he's older, it kind of goes more to the 3D modeling, and I didn't really like that as much. But the book in general was actually really good. And it didn't matter to me so much because it was done well enough there at the end that I kept liking it. So and it's not really it's kind of the same art, but it's the style. That's the reason it kind of changed to me and almost looked more like 3D modeling. It probably was the whole time with sketching over it, but I don't know. I'm rambling on at this point, but I can't say enough good things about this book. Go out and get it. Read it for yourself. You're really going to like it. It's just wow. I don't know what else to say. All right, guys. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. I've got a Patreon account that'll support me in writing my original content, as Diversity in Comics would say. And all right, guys. Just have a great day. Talk to you later. Underground Geek out.
I could